Well, good evening, good afternoon, or good morning, I guess, depending on where you are. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I just want to let you know that this AMA session is recorded, and this is for the US-Singapore Joint Challenge. Thanks again for being here. We're going to spend some time overviewing some of the basic information about the challenge, mechanics, and administrative information, and then turn it over to Dan Moose from the Coast Guard, who's going to talk a little bit on the problem statements. And then we're going to open it up for questions. So if you have a question already that you want to get in the queue, you can click on the bottom right in the activities button. It's the little shapes in the shape of a triangle. And if you click on the activities button, you can scroll down to the, let me see what it's exactly labeled as. There's a Q&A button that has a question mark, so you can go ahead and put your questions in there. And as we're going through this, we will go through them in the order that they were received. So please feel free to go ahead and start putting them in there if you have questions already. Otherwise, I will go ahead and get us started. So the first slide here has the timeline. This is posted on our website. And today we're having our Ask Me Anything, which is on the US side for our specific challenge, but there is another one hosted by our Singapore partners. And that one I will make sure is up on the website. Eunice or Lynn, can you confirm for me the actual date and time, because I don't have this in the slide? Is it
Yeah, I'm not
tomorrow?
sure what time would it be in the US time zone, but in the Singapore time zone, it will be on the 11th of October at 9:30 a.m.
Okay, thank you. And then on the 30th of October, the solicitation period is going to close. So that's going to begin our down selection process, where our subject matter experts will begin evaluations and go through screenings. On November 27th, our down select period will end, and that's when we'll send out notifications to notify if you are a finalist invited to the next round, or if you were not selected. And then from there, we have our pitch rehearsal on the 3rd of December. And really what that is just a pre-recording with our production team. And so we'll slot some times for that. And then on December 5th is our virtual pitch event. And the time is to be determined. We're hoping to find a time that will be somewhat convenient for our Singapore partners and also convenient for those in the US and the 3 different time zones here. Well, 4. So this is the basic pitch deck requirement. This again is on our website. Maximum 10 slides. We prefer PDF files. And then these are the criteria that your submissions will be scored off of. So when you submit your proposal, we'll use this criteria here to go through and evaluate and score to determine who's going to be invited as a finalist. And then during our pitch event, this is the same criteria that we're going to use there to do scoring. And at this time, I would like to introduce Dan Moose. He's with the U.S. Coast Guard. Dan, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to talk a little bit on the problem statements.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Dan Moose. I'm with the U.S. Coast Guard's Maritime Security Response Team. We support probably 70 to 80% of all the U.S. Coast Guard's counter-UAS operations with the United States. Predominantly, those are sports events, political events. We've been in New York City last week and supported our nation's national party conventions over the last month and a half. So the challenges that we run into that I think are reflected in the problem.
Hey Dan, this might be just on my end, but I'm hearing it getting broken up a little bit. Are you connected to Wi-Fi? Just want to check.
I am, yes. Is that any better?
I think that sounds better for me.
Okay.
Let's roll with that.
Okay, so I wasn't going to go into detail. Angela, I don't know how much detail you want me to talk to you about the actual written problem statements, but I'll express the challenges that we commonly have with the systems that we're currently using. Is that all right?
Yes, please go ahead, and then you can just talk through our problem statements also if you'd like. And then from there, we'll open it up for questions, and I'll run through the questions and read them off. And then if it's a technical question, defer to you to see if it's something you can answer for us.
Okay, thank you. That's fine. So the problem statements reflect a lot of the challenges that we have during the operations that we've supported over the last several years. The proliferation of drones, obviously, around the world has been difficult to keep up with, and the technology is changing constantly. So we are highly dependent currently on RF-based technologies or technologies that are actually intercepting the RF signal between the drone and the pilot, between encryption with some of the drone vendors and some of the unique communication protocols that they are using. We find that both government and the commercial supporters of our systems are constantly going back to renew and update based on emerging threats, emerging technologies, and changes in the RF spectrum and the types of drones that are being sold in the U.S. marketplace. We are also constantly challenged with the environments that we're operating in. As a Coast Guard, obviously, we're working in busy port and metropolitan areas. So many of the systems that we've tested over the years and those that we're currently using perform exceptionally well in RF quiet environments, where often they are tested at military test sites. But operating those same systems in very, very complex RF environments in major metropolitan areas such as Boston or New York or Los Angeles certainly minimizes or mitigates some of the great capabilities that those systems offer. So we're really looking for an opportunity to find some newer, innovative ideas on how to be able to identify, track, monitor in real time drone activity, geolocate pilot locations as well as the drone, and then to be able to take action, electronically attack those drones to either hold them in place, land them at a point of our choosing, or send them back to their pilot location. And as always with our operations, we really try to ensure that we've got an appropriate end game in place so that we can vector law enforcement officers to the pilot location to be able to detain the pilot and question them to determine what their intent was in flying in an area that was otherwise restricted for their flights. Does that provide a good enough overview, Angela? You want me to go into some more details?
I think that's great. That's super helpful for some background. And we're just going to pause on questions until we get through the overview. And then, of course, please ask your questions there via the activities button. But I have the technical requirements. I don't know if you want to speak to this. Otherwise, I can just share that these are the specifications that we're looking for here. So you can find them all on the event page on NSIN, but they're all spelled out there as far as what we're looking for. Dan, was there anything here you wanted to cover?
Yeah, Angela, there's a couple of things I'd just highlight from the slide that you've got up right now. So on identification speed, with some of the systems we've tested over the years has been a little bit of a challenge because of latency in the systems. Fortunately, I think most vendors that are providing good products now are able to decrease that to, seconds or milliseconds. So it's helpful when we're trying to identify the precise location of both the drone and the pilot, particularly the pilot, when we're looking at locating pilots in very densely populated areas in metropolitan or port environments can be really challenging when you've got a long period of time between the reported location on your system and the actual location of the pilot if they happen to be moving. False alarm rates is another challenge that we constantly have, particularly in the Wi-Fi RF spectrum. When we work in major metropolitan areas, very commonly we'll have dash cameras, Wi-Fi systems, and other RF emitters in the area that falsely alarm our system. So it takes practice and time for our operators to be able to discern the difference between a drone and a pilot if we're not very quickly determining that we're getting a serial number and a location and a make model on the drone that we've identified. Size, weight, and power is a challenge for us as well, very commonly, and this is, I think, consistent with the experience of our other partners in our Department of Homeland Security. A lot of our systems are not located or not installed permanently on vehicles or vessels, so they have to be man portable, easy to install for short periods of time, allowing us to be able to set them up in an optimal location to be able to provide the best coverage of the area that we're trying to protect. Just slides you've got up right now.
I'm sorry, I couldn't make out what you said. Do you want me to switch slides?
No, I think that covered everything that's on the current slide that I wanted to highlight.
Okay. And so this is our second problem statement, the resilient communications. Was there anything here you wanted to touch on, Dan?
Yeah, I apologize. I haven't looked at these in a couple of days. It's been a busy day for me. No, I think that the should speak for itself. Nothing here to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you. And then again, we have the technical requirements spelled out here. Dan, again, if you'd like to highlight anything, please feel free to.
One of the metrics that I think is not really captured on here, but we're most interested in is really the range at which the system is designed to be able to detect, track, and then it's likely in most cases a slightly different and shorter range at which that same system may be able to take action against the drone to force it to land. So we're extremely interested in those areas. There's a range of systems on the market now that can easily detect and track something a few hundred yards away. But when we're talking about the speed at which a drone can fly, we really need to be able to detect it out at 1,000 to 1,500 meters at an absolute minimum, preferably many miles out. But I know that's certainly challenging. So we'll be interested to see the results of what different vendors can offer in an extended range format. Still keeping in mind that size, weight, and power are critical to us. Extremely large, cumbersome systems that take a long period of time to install would be certainly more challenging.
Great, thank you, Dan. So at this time, I'd like to start going through some of the questions. Please feel free to enter them in the activities button while I'm going through these. The first one I have is, let's see. We are a U.S. company with SAM ID and U.S. cage code. We are wholly owned by an Israeli parent company, but operate and do all production in the U.S. Does the ownership exclude us from this challenge?
Angela, I'll step in here and take this. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Saunders, and I'm one of the Challenge Program Managers here at DIU NSIN. So this company does not satisfy the first bullet listed in our eligibility criteria, specifying U.S.-owned and operated companies or companies from NATO, Five Eyes, USMCA, and TPP countries. And to my knowledge, Israel is not included in the latter list. So as such, they're ineligible to participate, unfortunately.
Thank you. The next question. Our company meets the requirements of non-traditional defense contractor, and we were acquired and are now wholly owned subsidiary of a traditional defense contractor that recently received a DoD contract subject to full coverage under the cost accounting standards. And sorry, when I scroll down here, sometimes I lose my place. Full coverage under the cost accounting standards and is no longer a non-traditional defense contractor. So then, unfortunately, in that case, you are not eligible. Rolling on to the next question. Does the affiliation with our... Oh, yes, go ahead, Eunice.
Yeah, hi, Angelo. I'm Eunice Star from Singapore. So for those companies that's not eligible under the US NSIN requirements, Angela, is it possible for us to share that they can apply through our Capital Accelerator instead?
Yes, they are still eligible to apply as long as they meet your eligibility requirements. So that's a great point.
Yeah. I can share that in the chat here for everyone to see the link.
Thanks so much. And so just to clarify, she's sharing the link to the Singapore's separate challenge. And they have a slightly different defined set of criteria, and it's just a little bit different than our challenge. But please go ahead and check and see if you're eligible to apply to theirs, because if you're ineligible for ours, hopefully you might be eligible to apply to that one. Thanks so much, Eunice. Okay, the next question, we looked at the technical requirement and it listed 4 requirements: detection, tracking, identification, and disruption. Our solution is only for disruption, excuse me, and not for the rest. Would the solution only offering disruption capability be eligible for this challenge? Dan, that sounds more like a question for you. Would you be able to answer that one?
Yeah, within the scope of how you approach the contract, if there's flexibility in doing so, I would say yes. We have a number of systems that can do very effective detection and tracking. In many circumstances, though, the ability to mitigate or take action against a drone is a little lacking in some of the different systems that we are using or have tested. So we would be interested in being able to look at systems that are designed only for the disruption phase.
Great, thank you, Dan. The next question, prior to submitting a proposal, we wanted to ask if DoD UARCs are eligible to apply. As written on the website, we are not an early to mid-stage venture or non-traditional defense contractor. If allowable, we'd like to partner with a small business to submit a proposal. Please advise. And so in this case, UARCs are not part of the eligibility criteria. However, a small business can submit and partner with whomever they choose. We don't screen for that component. Really, we're screening for who's actually applying to it. So as long as it's the small business applying, who they're partnering with, wouldn't really be of concern in this case with it being a UARC. So in that case, yes, you can apply through the small business, and the small business is the one who receives the funding award. And of course, you could distribute accordingly if you were partnered on it. Okay, the next question, how heavily is the total solution cost weighed in the selection process? So I know, Dan, you might be able to speak to this a little bit, but I would say in general, the information that we release as far as, the technical specifications in the slide that we just had up, we don't break it down into exactly where the scoring and the weighted components. We just have the criteria that you're going to be scored off of, and we don't share really in depth on what's weighted or not. But I would say, just as general guidance, I think, most of the time we encourage companies, if they think they have a relevant solution, to apply, because we don't always receive somebody who's meeting the mark with every single requirement. However, they might be really strong in one area. So I would say it'd always be better to apply and get considered. Dan, did you have any other guidance there?
No, I completely agree with that. Size, weight, power, and performance are all very important, but we can't disregard costs. So I wouldn't say that we would discount a solution simply because it is expensive. Sometimes the added expense is worth it based on exceptional performance. So just leave it at that.
Thank you. The next question is, does the submission require any other documents besides the 10-slide deck? If so, what are they? I can speak to that. So that is the deliverable requirement for submitting a proposal to the challenge. As part of that, you will also have the submission form to fill out. And then within that form, you'll attach your slide deck. And then for the actual pitch event, it will be the same. So you may make changes between that and the pitch event, but it will be the same. We'll just need to have your slide deck with any changes sent to us within a few days prior to the pitch event. So hopefully that clarifies your question there. Thank you. Megan just included the link to the submission form. Thanks so much, Megan. And that can be found on the NSIN challenge event page also. The next question is, are the evaluation criteria listed in any order of importance? And no, I think it kind of goes back to the last question we had. We just really tried to scope the challenge in a way that met the capability needs of our stakeholders involved. So it wasn't necessarily listed in any order of importance. Our company is allowed to submit entries as part of a team and solo. We wouldn't discourage teaming. However, we're only going to fund, there has to be one main company that's submitting that we screen for eligibility and then would fund also. So the teaming effort doesn't mean we would distribute funds amongst the team. But teaming is definitely still allowed and encouraged if it's going to benefit. The next question, to meet problem statement number 1, is there a requirement to interface with an external C2, and will there be threat information or direction coming from additional sources? Dan, do you want to provide any insight on that? I'm not as familiar with the technical piece and whether interfacing with command and control would be appropriate or needed here.
No, I think for the purposes of this project, I would say it's not a mandated requirement that it be capable of interfacing. Many of our partners across DoD and DHS are using the Tactical Application Kit, or ATAK. ITAC, there's various versions, as a common software tool to integrate and share information across a broad audience. So integration or the ability to push data to attack network would be desirable. I think beyond that, it would really come down to what particular systems, the system's ability to be able to push their data to, for instance, if it's only a disruption system, we would want to be able to tie that to a comparable identification and tracking system. But there's so many different ones, it's very difficult to tell a vendor it has to be compatible with a certain written standard or metric or type of software. So I would say TAC is probably the easy solution. If it's integrated with that or can be integrated with that, it would be highly valuable for us.
Great, thank you, Dan. And it looks like our next question is very similar to one received earlier. The solicitation listed for requirements, detection, tracking, identification, and disruption. Our solution is only for disruption and not the rest. Would the solution only offering disruption capability be eligible for this challenge? Ultimately, it's up to you. If you want to submit, I would encourage you to do so. Are other technologies that are in support of UAS defensive solutions relevant to this challenge? For instance, our solar technology has been powering counter UAS equipment to provide resiliency in remote and austere locations. Would a supportive UAS technology such as charging, shelter, etc., be relevant? I think that one's for you, Dan.
Yeah, Angela, that sounds a little bit outside the bounds of the problem statement that we started with, but I'll leave that to you all to decide.
Okay, great. I think in any case, we can't really advise on whether or not you should apply. We would just encourage, if you think you have a relevant solution, please do so. For problem statement 1, is there a threat list with specific models that we can leverage or refer to deliver a better performance? Do you have specific models you are most concerned with? Over to you, Dan.
Yeah, the threat lists that I have are all classified, so I probably couldn't share those. But I think I could say in general, any drone commercially sold in the U.S. marketplace should probably be in, or any system should be able to track, monitor, and disrupt the drones that are commonly sold in the U.S. marketplace.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one of two related questions. Separately from the joint challenge, we are currently speaking with the Singapore government about them acquiring one of our systems. We have ITAR restrictions. The Singapore government is signing a DSP 83, which we will file to the Department of State to submit for an application to export significant military classified equipment. Can we still submit for the challenge? If we win, how will the export control authorities be navigated and by whom? Dan, I don't know if you can answer something related to export controls. I know I personally don't have enough information to be able to respond to this one. So I'm thinking it's probably better to circle back on this one unless anyone else has anything to add.
Agree. I couldn't answer that one.
Okay, great. All of these questions and answers will be posted following this, so we will circle back on that one. Next question, what sort of scenarios are you most concerned with addressing in counter UAS? Swarms, singles, high speed, something else? What vignettes are you considering for the challenge?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we're having, that we are most concerned about, is swarms or large numbers. They may not all be command and controlled by a single pilot or autonomously within a network. However, a large number of drones simultaneously to deal with is certainly a challenge that we would hope a system could be able to address.
Okay, thank you. Since these systems will be operating in populated areas and seaports, is collateral damage an issue?
Yeah, I can answer that question. Yes, collateral damage for DHS and the Coast Guard is a concern. We're operating in the U.S. national airspace, often around major metropolitan areas, with the millions of people, infrastructure, vehicles, vessels, aircraft. So collateral damage is a concern for us. Now, our DoD partners that are also involved in this probably have a completely or very different perspective on that, so I don't want to talk for them.
Thank you. If selected, where would the demonstration take place? Are we allowed to do a site survey beforehand to smooth logistics for the demo? So if selected, the next phase is the pitch event. And in that case, we're going to have a virtual pitch event. And so you're going to do a 5-minute pitch. We do hope to coordinate a demonstration event following this challenge. So it'll be related to this challenge that we're doing jointly, but separate from the challenge itself. So the award associated with this challenge is following the pitch event. Any demonstration will be like a secondary event coordinated following. And yes, if we were to do that, I don't know if you could do a site survey, but we would definitely disseminate all of that information regarding that ahead of time so that there was time to coordinate. For challenge number 1, are you looking for RF signal sensors only, or are you open to use active sensors such as radar?
From the Coast Guard's perspective, we would be interested in any technology that can identify, track, and disrupt a drone's flight.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Is there a preferred counter UAS defeat type, kinetic, jam, HPM, defeat, etc.?
Although I wouldn't say preferred, we are very, very interested in heavily investing in kinetic solutions at this point, although the challenges that I mentioned earlier with the RF systems and the challenge of keeping pace with a lot of the newer RF spectrums, encrypted data, and different waveforms that some manufacturers are using are also a challenge. So any and all of those disruption mechanisms would be of value to us. Kinetic seems to be at this point a major challenge in U.S. airspace because of the potential collateral damage of some technologies.
Thank you. The next question is on unit pricing. Who would the customer be? The DoD? I can answer that. It would be, of course, we're working with certain components of the DoD here. In this case, the U.S. Coast Guard and 3rd Marine Littoral Regiment. And but yes, it would be DoD service organizations, because sometimes there are interested parties who see something they like and it leads towards or ends up leading to a contract down the road. Let's see, where are demonstrations envisioned to take place, US or Singapore? We haven't quite worked out a demonstration event in the details yet, so we will keep you posted on any progression in the coordination of a demonstration event. For challenge number 2, is there any specific frequency band?
No, I wouldn't say any specific frequency band. The common bands, 2.4 gigahertz, 5.8 gigahertz, 400 megahertz, 900 megahertz, the ones commonly used by manufacturers selling in the U.S. market are certainly of a concern to us. 1.2 gig and 1.8 are also somewhat of a concern and are emerging areas where we're starting to see some activity. So it's a broad range. In many cases, though, it's relatively common in what is being sold in the U.S. Regarding the types of drones that we're most interested in tracking.
Thank you. For number 2, are you looking for the whole drone solution or just the radio?
I'm not sure I understand that question.
Mr. Zhang, would you mind elaborating on that? Please feel free to raise your hand and or start speaking.
Hello.
Hi, did you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, does point two, do we need to submit the whole drone solution or just the radio? Or just the radio solution?
Sir, I assume when you ask the question about the radio, you're talking about the radio with antennas and the ability to transmit and receive data off that radio. Is that what I'm getting?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we would have to be able to evaluate a complete system that operates standalone without any ancillary government furnished equipment to make it function as designed. Does that make sense?
Okay, so you have to submit the whole solution, including the drone, and the evaluation will take into account the drone that is being submitted.
Well, no, not necessarily the drone, but the counter UAS system that can detect, track, and disrupt a drone in flight. So a complete
No,
system.
I'm talking about challenge statement number 2, the resilient communications.
Angela, would you mind putting this up?
Sure. Yeah, let me pull that up. And Dan, we can always circle back to if it'd be helpful to discuss with our other mission partners and get a clearer answer.
Yeah, that may be helpful. I need to think about that one.
Okay, sure. So we will get back to you on that one. Counter UAS is a suite of technologies. Can I partner with a Singapore company to propose the solution? Yes, partnering is okay, and companies from Singapore are okay. The only The only issue with partnering is that we will only process payment for one company. So one will have to kind of be the prime and lead for the partnering case. But yes, you're more than welcome to. Is it possible to have drones that communicate with an encrypted protocol and are radio silent for extended periods of time? How will inferring with the RF signal detect such drones?
Well, and that highlights the challenge we commonly have with certain drones that are either modified or designed to operate in either RF bands that we can't monitor or set up to operate autonomously. So the RF-based technologies that we're using in some of our systems certainly couldn't detect that because there would be no RF signal between a pilot and the drone. But radar, electro-optic, infrared, and other types of technologies can detect and track drones like that. So a combination of multiple different types of technologies always provides an optimal solution in those circumstances where you may have dark drones that are not emitting any RF signal.
Okay, thank you. Is DIU and MINDEF Singapore jointly hosting a single demonstration challenge per problem statement, 2 events, or are they all separate, 4 total events? So to clarify here, we have pitch events as part of this challenge. We each have our own pitch event. So each pitch event will showcase, or the finalist companies will pitch to their proposals for 5 minutes each. It will be in both cases, it will be for both problem statements. So 2 total pitch events, 1 for each country. As far as a demonstration event, we do hope to coordinate one, but one is not planned as of yet. For resilient communications, are you looking for command and control and telemetry, or also video?
Our primary concern is command and control and telemetry. Being able to intercept and actually see the video is not a significant concern of ours.
Okay, thank you. Would there be any RF emission restrictions during any resulting demo? Because we don't have one coordinated, I really couldn't answer that, and I wouldn't even know enough about it to know if that's a possibility. Dan, is there anything you want to add there?
Well, I can't give a clear answer because it will depend on the time and location for the demonstration. Anytime we operate our equipment in the U.S., we have an extensive spectrum coordination process. Appropriate agencies approve the RF spectrum we're going to be operating in and emitting RF energy in. So it really comes down to power out of the given system and the of where it's going to be used. So I can't believe the test location that we have used in the past have been in relatively remote urban or rural areas. So getting the approval to use a broad range of different types of RF emitters has been completely acceptable. The only caution I would say is anything that is emitting in the same bands as GPS signals or GNSS navigation signals generally is denied by our Federal Communications Commission.
Great, thank you, Dan. The next question is, can you clarify the activities on December 3rd and 5th? Does this entail a real tech demo? December 3rd is the pre-recording, and that will be with our production company who will help you pre-record your 5-minute pitch for the actual pitch event. On the 5th is our pitch event, and each finalist invited will have 5 minutes to pitch their proposal, followed by 5 minutes of Q&A from the judging panel. And again, that will be for both problem statements. So we're going to invite the finalists for both and have them both problem statements, all companies pitch. So it may be, sorry, I'm drawing a blank because I don't remember how many we said up to how many would be invited. I don't remember if it was 6 or 8. Megan, do you happen to know off the top of your head? I can pull up the solicitation before we're out of this meeting to confirm. But I was going to add the number because sometimes that would translate into probably almost 3 hours if we have 15 companies is usually like a 3-hour event and it's virtual, just to give you a better understanding of the event. So it's not a real
Angela?
tech demo, it's a pitch. Go ahead.
It's up to six per problem statement.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for confirming. I hope I didn't confuse anybody. I had two numbers in my head. So up to 12 would be pitching then in total at the pitch event. For problem statement 2, we offer a sea-launched aerial drone that can be mobile comms relay for Group 1 drones, and demonstration of video feed relay from a Group 1 drone required. Is demonstration of video feed relay from a Group 1 drone required, or would float and fly operation of our drone with representative power and payload of the comm system be sufficient?
I think the latter description would be sufficient.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to try to push through the rest of these before our time's up here. For problem statement 2, does the mobile comms relay need to also control the Group 1 drone, or is relay of the video feed sufficient?
No, I think that would have to be able to control the drone as well as relay the video information.
Okay, thank you. Would you be interested in kinetic counter UAS solution involving explosives?
Our DoD partners would probably say yes, but I won't answer for them. For Coast Guard working domestically in the U.S., I would have to say no.
Thank you. For problem statement 2, are there any details on level of congestion, spectrum attacks, etc., that the proposal should be able to maintain communication?
Angela, I think that part of your problem statement really focuses more on our DoD participants in this, so I'll defer to them.
Okay, we'll circle back. Similar to the previous question, is detection only of interest? Thanks. And if I need to circle back on this one, Dan, let me know.
Could you repeat that question, please?
Similar to the previous question, is detection only of interest?
Yes, I think if it's a novel approach that's highly effective, then detection only would be of interest to us.
Is this a joint challenge for a sole U.S. Coast Guard challenge? Or a sole U.S. Coast Guard challenge? Is there a Singapore Ask Me Anything? So this is the U.S. challenge. It's separate from the Singapore challenge, and we have 2 mission partners. We have the Coast Guard and the Marine Corps. Singapore also has their own separate challenge, a little bit different than ours, but very similar, and same problem statements. And they do have an Ask Me Anything session. It is tomorrow, and let me try to translate the exact time for you so that you can have it in at least Eastern time. So we'll drop that in the chat. Thank you so much, Eunice. It's in the chat. Can you clarify application process, USA versus Singapore, or can we submit to both? You can submit to both. I can speak to the US application process. The link that Megan provided in the chat box is the link you'll use to submit. And you can also find it on the NSIN event page. So if you just search NSIN US Singapore Challenge, you should be able to find that page and then find the link to the form to submit. The Singapore process is a little bit different. You can submit to both. You just need to submit separately to each process. For challenge number 2, for the demonstration, how many drones do we need to fly? So we don't have a demonstration. We have a pitch event. We hope to have a demonstration following, especially with all of the questions on it. It seems like there'd be many interested. So we do hope to coordinate one. This one's just a pitch event in this challenge. Are there any contractual or solution development obligations associated with winning the challenge? For the US challenge, no. The prize money is awarded and you can do what you choose with it. we do hope to coordinate a demonstration event following, but and we do hope that some of the DoD partners interested in this technology will be interested and in doing some follow-on work, but there's nothing, no strings attached. What is the expected TRL level of submitted applications? We get this question a lot, and I think by specifying, we're only limiting, because we find sometimes that maybe we're looking for something TRL 6 to 8 and something and not quite as developed. That would be something we wouldn't think we were looking for. Our mission partners loved it. So I would say we try not to specify the TRL. So I would encourage you to apply if you think you have a relevant proposal and solution. For challenge statement number 2, during the demonstration, will you be doing any deliberate jamming? We will not have a demonstration, but if we are able to coordinate one, we will give those details. Can we propose an EAR export controlled solution in our pitch deck? I'm not familiar with what that is. So I will get back to you. In the essence of time, I'm going to keep pushing along. And Eunice just shared further information. I believe it left my screen real quick, but I think it was on your pitch event, the Singapore pitch event. Let me see. Gosh. Yes, there's a link to the Singapore pitch event or I'm sorry, it's their event page, and they also specify their application period, probably speaking to that earlier question we had. Trying to scroll down to the rest of my questions. Sorry, I switched over to the chat and then I lost track. Is there a template pitch deck available? No, we do not provide one. As long as it meets the specifications provided in the solicitation that we pulled up here earlier today, though, that's really just the baseline of what we're looking for. Is there an expected prize award breakdown between the 2 problem statements? No, there isn't, and that is purposely done because we want to leave it open. I think really in a lot of cases, it depends on what the proposals are and what the competition is. And so we leave that part for that decision to be made based upon what we see and what our evaluators think about the solutions, and it will be determined then post-pitch event. Could you provide more details on the potential future opportunities available to winners of the challenge? We do have interest in coordinating a demonstration event, so that is something that we've been in discussion about. Also, when we hold events like this, we have our mission partners, in this case, the Coast Guard and the Marine Corps, who are interested in this technology and the proposals received, but we will also bring in as many other DoD different services and organizations to understand what's being proposed and learn more about your technologies, in hopes that if it meets one of their capability requirements, they may wish and choose to work with you in the future. So those are all things that we try to expose you to in these pitch events so that you're getting that networking and engagement across the DoD. The submission form notes that documentation that supports your claims regarding ownership and operational status, for example, business registration, proof of incorporation, can be uploaded in the supporting documentation page. Is this a hard requirement element of the submission? I don't believe so, but Megan, did we make that a required field? Can you confirm?
I will drop it in the chat, Angela.
The answer or the form?
The answer, if you want to keep going.
Great, thank you. When does the application close in Singapore versus the US? Eunice, don't we both close on the 30th of October?
Yes, we do, but in different time zones. So I've put in the link in the chat. Yeah.
Okay. So it's the 30th their time. So probably maybe, I don't know what time on the 30th for them. So the day before for us on the US side. Will you publish the list of Q&A on your website? Yes, we will. If we have video links included in our slides, will that actually be watched by the judging panel? Usually we discourage those. You'll get more guidance for your pitch from a production company because some things just don't work well when we're producing those events. So it really just depends, and it's up to you how you want to create that and develop your pitch deck. It's your call. But to answer your question, the judging panel does review your pitch decks. If we have additional questions for the challenge, what would be the best way to get those answers? You can reach out to us at Megan. Actually, can you drop our email address, the one that we're using for this challenge, into the chat box, please? Great, thank you so much. And Megan just answered the question on supporting documentation for eligibility being optional, and then gives a little bit more information in the chat box as well. When the problem statement says propose a tech demonstration in a controlled environment, preferably at a harbor, in the first phase, do we just need to detail what we do on the technical side, or include associated cost, IP, contracts, info, and other proposal elements? Dan, I'm not sure. Do you have an answer for that one?
No, I think that's more in your lane than our.
I'll have to circle back on that one and get some clarification there. Looks like we were at the end of our questions, and with just a minute to spare, which is perfect. Again, all of this is going to be, it's being recorded, as I mentioned in the beginning, so we'll have the video available and the transcribed questions. And then we'll respond to the ones also that we didn't have an answer ready for you today. I just want to say thanks to everyone on the call. We're super excited that we have so much interest. This is a great sign. I'm really glad that you all could join us today. And thanks to Dan for coming here and sharing your expertise with us and giving a little bit more insight. And thanks to our Singapore partners and being here also and providing more information. And I just wanted to add before we go, I kind of jumped into things without explaining anything, but just so you know, my name's Angela Austin, and I'm also a challenge program manager at NSIN, part of DIU. So if you aren't familiar with our organization, we like to, in our program specifically, we're putting on these challenges to help connect the early to mid-stage ventures and non-traditional contractors with our mission partners and solve some of the national security problems. And so we're trying to bring in those new innovative ideas into the Department of Defense. And we have a network throughout NSIN that we leverage to do so. So I just wanted to share that little bit of information. I kind of jumped into it, and maybe some of you don't know who we are. But again, so happy that you all joined us today. And please feel free to reach out. Our email is again, it's in the chat box. So if you have any additional questions that come after this, just shoot us an email and we will get back to you. Otherwise, thanks again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.